Albrecht Dürer is going to be the dominant artist of the Holy Roman Empire in the 16th century. He's the first artist outside of Italy to really be a celebrity, and he's also among the first to travel to Italy expressly to study the art. What he's seeing is that the Italians have a different style. He wants to go and soak that up and bring it back to the Holy Roman Empire, not to change their style, not to become Italian in style, but rather to bring their ideas, mix them with the ideas of Northern Europe and create something very new. He's also the first Northern artist to understand the aims of the Italian Renaissance. We also know quite a bit about him through his diaries, his journals, and his correspondence, so we have a lot of information on Albrecht Dürer. We're going to be looking at his Fall of Man. Now, Dürer was known more as a printmaker than he was as a painter. That kind of makes sense because you can get your name out there in prints much easier than you can in painting, because prints can be printed and sold in mass quantity. I create one piece, but I can sell 1,000 prints from it. So it makes a lot of sense from a commercial perspective. After all, artists are trying to make money just like electricians, plumbers, or anyone else. Now, this piece is engraved on copper plate. So instead of using a simple etching technique, he's actually engraving, which means he's cutting into the plate without the wax resist or the use of acid. This gives him the ability to create more detail, but at the same time, it's much more likely that he, messes things up. Because with wax, if I scrape away some wax and it's wrong, I can just put more wax in that place. I can erase the mistake. If I'm engraving, I can't do that. I can't put more copper in place. So he has to be very, very careful when he creates these pieces. He also happens to be an aggressive marketer, something that works really well for prints. So the piece that we're going to look at, The Fall of Man, I promise we'll get to it, is a study in Vitruvian proportion of man based on math. Now, the Vitruvian Man is based on an explanation written by Vitruvius, a Roman architect, who is, in turn, working from Polycleitus, a Greek sculptor who creates the spear bearer. And it represents what Vitruvius believes is the perfect proportions of a human being, and by a human being, I mean a man, because this is the 16th century, and these are Romans and Greeks, and that's just sort of what we're left with. So what we have here are two idealized figures, reminiscent of classical sculpture. This is Dürer's perfect representation of the perfect male and female. And that male, you can see that Vitruvian form in it, perfectly proportioned, almost mathematical and symmetrical, using a lot of the Greek ideas. The female he tries to idealize in much the same way, but of course, he's leaving aside the fact that the female form is, by nature, different than the male form. So we end up with a female who still has some masculine characteristics, despite the fact that she has been feminized to some degree with the addition of breasts and wider hips. But the musculature is very, very similar. The animals that we see are reminiscent of symbolism. And you'll see that he also signs the work up there. Now, the signature is there because he's a marketer. At the end of the day. So he wants his signature to be obvious. He wants people to follow him, to look for his work. The cat and mouse that I've highlighted underneath at the ground level are there again getting at those ideas of good versus evil that we've seen in other pieces. We also see other creatures in the background, all of them symbolic. The serpent in the tree, the cow resting peacefully in the pasture. It's trying to get across this idea of peace. Even the cat and mouse are very peaceful at this point because the apple hasn't been eaten. As soon as it is, all chaos breaks loose. So the cat and mouse symbolize the tension in Adam and Eve's relationship at the time of the fall of man. Also symbolize, again, good versus evil.